I'm Gary Bembridge. This is another of my tips for travelers, cruise news and updates. Every single week I bring you the biggest and most important breaking news about the world of cruising so you don't have to track it yourself. The first and biggest of those 5 stories is around what's happening with cruise resumption. As we know, there is the no sail order, which is for all ships heading in and out of the United States. This is in place at the moment until July the 24th. The CDC issued a statement through the media, and the most important part of that was the following, where they said, at this point in time, we do not have enough information to say when it will be safe for cruise ships to resume sailing. We've seen a whole nother raft of cancellations announced during the course of the last week. The big announcements are really pushing cruising back into the October-November timescale. P&O Cruises announced, which are based in the UK, announced changes where they have cancelled all their cruising through to October. Cunard cancelled all their cruises right through for 2 of their ships until the beginning of November, and for the Queen Elizabeth, their 3rd ship, until towards the end of November. We also saw Pullman Tour, which is a joint venture with Royal Caribbean, basically saying they're cancelling all of their cruises right through until November time. When it comes to resuming cruising, though, we are seeing more stuff happening actually within Europe on the positive side. Nico River Cruises, they have started very limited river cruising sailing for German-only passengers on the Rhine. We've also seen Crossy Europe, which is the biggest in terms of number of ships and number of rivers operator in Europe. They announced some new protocols and are talking about, they believe that they're going to be able to start doing some of their European itineraries as we head towards later in summer, August time. Also, very importantly, Norway has given the okay for Hurtigruten to start sailing for Norwegian passengers only, and during the course of June, some Danish passengers. We've also seen Sea Dream being given the okay to sail in Norwegian waters with Norwegian passengers, and again, some Danish passengers. MSC Cruises, which are really big in Europe, they have actually started recruiting staff to join their ships in mid-July in the Mediterranean to be trained on new protocols and procedures. So certainly if they're bringing crew back, they must feel pretty strongly they're going to be able to start sailing somewhere in the Mediterranean as we head towards the middle and end of summer. We've also seen some very active discussions, again, doing regional cruising for regional passengers are starting in France with Ponant. AIDA said they are starting to talk with doing German ports for German travellers. Viking have floated the idea of doing round the UK cruises for UK only. We haven't seen any specifics on those negotiations. We don't know how successful they're going to be, but certainly there is a lot of discussion underway in the news around doing local cruises for local residents. The second big news story is around ports and ports opening. Canada, as we know, have closed all ports to cruise ships to the end of October, which has effectively cancelled out the whole Alaska cruising season. The reason that's so important is, and why it's killed off the Alaska season, is all ships sailing in and out of the US that are not flagged in the US have to call at least one foreign port before they can return to the US. So that's why Canada is so important to the Alaska season. Australia have also said that they have banned all cruise ships until the middle of September. That was reinforced when Queensland, which is one of the states or territories, which includes Brisbane, a really important cruise port for cruises around Australia, where they said that all cruise ships are going to be banned until the end of the public health emergency. So that means that whole declaration of the public health emergency has to be lifted before they're going to allow cruise ships in. Of course, we don't know when that is going to happen. When it comes to the Caribbean, which of course is going to be really fundamental as cruises start sailing again out of the US, out of the Miami, Port Canaveral, Port Everglades, Caribbean is slowly starting to open up, but certainly when you look at the map and those countries that are opening, not that many have announced actual plans for opening. So we are seeing some of the islands opening to international travelers. So for example, we're seeing places like Jamaica, Aruba, St. Lucia all starting to open around about June time. We're seeing Bahamas talking about opening in July. And at the moment, the Cayman Islands are talking about around about September. What those are for travelers actually flying in. They haven't specifically spoken about cruise ships yet in the updates. And there are fairly varied approaches to it. So some of the islands are talking about the need for masks. Some are talking about pre-testing before you board flights. So there's not yet a consistent message around Caribbean ports and when they're opening. Of course, that's going to be really important to watch in the news over the coming weeks and months, because Caribbean ports are going to have to open as a no-sail order is released for cruises basically to work in the Caribbean. So I'll keep an eye on that news and keep you posted on that as we hear more on that over the coming weeks. The fourth area of news is around delays to ship builds and revamps and dry docks of ships. Of course, over the last month or two, there's been lots of news about ships being delayed because the shipyards have had to close down because of COVID. We saw this week the new Viking ship actually coming out of build, so that was some really positive good news. We've also seen Silver Sea basically taking their cruise ship, which is designed for the Galapagos, this week as well, so we're seeing some positive news on that. The other big news is around Royal Caribbean, where Royal Caribbean have actually postponed some big work on 4 of their ships. A lot of their ships are going through the big amplification process to improve the onboard offering. That has now been postponed. So the ones that were due in 2020, Explorer of the Seas and Allure of the Seas, they've been postponed. And the ones due in 2021, Liberty and Adventure of the Seas, they've also been postponed. The next piece of news is the deals keep coming. And one of the things I've said before is keep an eye out for deals. I believe pricing is going to become more and more volatile. We're going to see lots and lots of deals. And what we're seeing is pretty much any cruise line you go to, you're going to see what they call flash sales. So for limited periods of time, they're offering deep deals and activities to try and also encourage people to book by a certain deadline. Some of the ones I've seen this week that are particularly interesting, Norwegian Cruise Lines have launched a basically pay for an ocean view, get a balcony, and you can choose 2 or 3 extra perks and benefits from the whole range that they offer included within that price. Carnival offering really low prices, 2-for-1 deals and really low deposits. Holland America are offering a really great deal where they throw in all sorts of things. So you'll get free drinks, free gratuities, free signature dining package, free Wi-Fi for suites, reduced deposits. Oceania Cruises, which are already doing a promotion, have offered an extra 10% for members of their loyalty club. So basically, if you take a look at any cruise line, you'll see deals. The one thing I would encourage you though, and this is really, really important because this is also news as well, as I mentioned, there is lots of volatility to come in pricing. So make sure that you're tracking prices. You can do that either, for example, with a free service on Cruise Critic, where you can do a price alert when you search for a cruise. Another one called Cruise Watch. I set up a couple of alerts for some of the cruises that I have lined up for 2021, and already I've started getting alerts saying the prices are coming down. What happens when you get that? Contact the cruise line, say you've seen the prices coming down, ask them what they're going to do. Some of the cruise lines will give you upgrades, extra onboard credit, some of them will reduce the price. But make sure if you are locking in any of those deals that you're still tracking it. Those are the 5 big news stories for this week in terms of the Tips for Travellers cruise news and updates. Remember, I have loads more videos. Keep watching every single week. And don't forget that I have a live stream every single Sunday, 5 p.m. UK, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, and 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, where I will answer your cruise questions live.